Traders, now we're going to discuss revenge trading. Now, there are two main places that revenge trading can come from when you're trading. The first one is from typically from being angry at the markets and having this hot-headed anger response, and then you go off and do things that you later regret, like not sticking to your trading plan, over-risking, over-leveraging, taking trades that you think are going to play out that have no basis, part of a trading plan or an edge. Or the second component of revenge trading can be from what we refer to as a state of pride and a narcissistic projection, or a narcissistic projection onto the markets. Can also replace the word narcissistic with revenge. So we're going to discuss these two dynamics, because when you revenge trade in the market, they could be coming from either one or both. And we're going to talk about how you can manage these two dynamics and these two emotional states so that you're not falling victim to revenge trading. Now, to paint a little bit of a picture for today's masterclass, I want to talk more about the relationship between the market and the trader. So you can have the market here, and the market is just going to move. Price moves in the market. And if you go into your trading view, dashboard, you will see that you have two components to price. You've got time, and you've also got a price of that particular asset. And that asset is going to move up, it's going to move down, it's going to move up, it's going to move down, it's going to move up. And there are millions, if not more, factors impacting price over time at that particular point in time. Now, we can call this asset A, whatever it is. And price just moves. It moves up or it moves down. Now, the objective rationale behind price, or whatever, is it's neutral. Price just moves up or down depending on many, many factors. Now, if you then go off and set an expectation, at this point, I am going to risk money and I have an expectation that the market goes up, then if price goes up, you're then going to label that price movement good. Or if you at this point set an expectation that price is going to go up and then price moves down relative to your expectation, you're then going to label the market bad, or the price movement in the market bad. So objectively speaking, price movement is neutral. Objectively, the ups and downs, they're completely neutral. However, when we set an expectation as a trader observing that price action, and the price moves counter to our expectation and it challenges our expectation, we're then labeling that price movement bad. This is a very important distinction for today's lecture on revenge trading. So, number one, the first message I want to get across here is that price movement is objectively neutral. However, as a trader, we can set an expectation or some sort of an agenda for the direction we want price to move. I want price to move to this certain point, because if it does, it's going to make me money. It's going to lead to an outcome that in my mind is profitable and financially profitable. It may get me my funded account. It may get me some sort of street credit or social recognition in my community because I've predicted price movement. Okay? So now we have to understand that the second idea here is that because of the expectation that we're setting in our mind on the outcome, an outcome-based expectation, right? We then bring good and bad into the equation. Good and bad, labeling things good and bad in the market, is only as a result of whether price exceeds or doesn't exceed our expectations as traders. Our expectations. It's completely separate to the market. It's created in our own head. Okay? So now if price moves, and let's say we set an expectation and we want euro dollar to get to a certain price in a certain time, if the market doesn't meet that expectation that we set, we're going to feel challenged by the market. Okay? Now, remember that perception of challenge, or that us labeling the market's movement bad, is only there because of our initial expectation in the first place. Now, when we talk about psychology and understanding human psychology and human behavior, whenever we perceive challenge, we tend to puff ourselves up into a state of pride. And whenever we get challenged, just think about it in your life. Whenever you get challenged or humiliated or embarrassed, initially that may sting, that may be very, very painful. But then what you tend to do is you walk away, you grit your teeth, and maybe you stand up for yourself a little bit. And you back yourself up a little bit. And that is a prideful compensation for the challenge we're having in that moment. Okay? And it's pretty easy to see. Maybe throughout your life you were challenged quite a bit. And people who tend to be challenged quite a bit tend to be more proud and independent and slightly more entrepreneurial, because they go back to what is important to them. They have that prideful state. Whereas individuals who are supported throughout their life, they tend to become a little bit more soft, and they become a little bit more dependent on other individuals. So being challenged by the market, we're going to puff ourselves up into this state of pride. And then pride has a narcissistic compensation, or in other words, a revenge compensation. Okay? Revenge and narcissism are a compensation of pride. Okay? Because one was challenged. And this is a very common dynamic in relationships or in social dynamics. People are only narcissistic or revengeful when they've had their values or their priorities or their expectations challenged. There's no such thing necessarily as a individual that's always narcissistic. If you go to the moment when they have narcissistic qualities, you'll find that in that moment they're being challenged, they're puffing up into a state of pride, and they're having those narcissistic compensations. So too, us as individuals, myself, sometimes I have narcissistic behaviors when I'm being challenged. So too, I have altruistic behaviors when I'm being supported. So human nature and our reactions, or our how we react in certain situations, are very predictable based on whether our expectations and our priorities in that moment are being supported and challenged. In this particular dynamic, when you're challenged in the markets because of your initial expectations, right, that challenge leads to puffing yourselves up into pride and then having a narcissistic revenge-based mindset to project onto the market what you think. And in this state, what you're going to be doing in your mind is you're going to be saying, all right, I'm fed up with the market. I am now able to predict what's going to happen next in the market. I'm going to force my own idea, my own agenda, my own will onto the market because I know what's happening. I'm proud. I'm minimizing the risk in the market, and I'm projecting my ideas onto the market narcissistically. Okay? And this is where revenge trading comes in. If you think about it, when you're revenge trading, you're not sticking to a process, you're not sticking to a plan. Your only real justification for taking that trade is because you're angry and you're in that moment seeking revenge, really. And in that moment, that's coming from a proud state of thinking that you can predict what's going to happen next in the market, which is, any trader who revenge trades realizes and understands that that is a recipe for disaster, because there's no edge there. It's all gambling. Revenge trading is gambling. Okay, so now that you have a good understanding of the human behavior behind revenge trading and where it comes from, let's talk about actionable solutions to this challenge. Now, there are two places that we need to address. The first one is that anger. The second is that proud narcissistic projection onto the market. And there are really three actionable solutions. The first one, and you're probably all going to guess it because it's by far the most common solution to a lot of your trading psychology problems, is you need to make sure you have an edge and a mechanical trading plan. Okay? Mechanics in your trading plan and a proven edge that you're certain in take out a lot of the emotional components of trading. They help you manage the amygdala. And by the way, all these emotional challenges are a symptom of being caught up in the amygdala, that survival response like we've talked about. So if you don't already have an edge you're certain in with a mechanical trading plan, go back to the first few videos in this YouTube series and watch those because they're going to be useful. Now, psychological solutions. Number 2. Remember, you're only perceiving challenge in the market because of your initial expectation, your initial agenda that you're promoting in the market. Now, if you didn't have an expectation or you didn't put money down or skin in the game at this point here, or this point here, then you can watch the price movement go up and down unemotionally. right? If you don't have a certain expectation, you don't have money in the market, and you're not emotionally invested in the markets at that point in time, you can objectively watch price go up and down, tick up and down without any emotional state as a result. So the big trigger here that we need to address is the initial expectation in that moment that you're putting on the market that's leading you to labeling price movement that's objectively neutral, moving up or down, as a challenge in that moment. Remember, if you have a baseline in your mind, an expectation or an anchor, it's also referred to as the anchoring effect in psychology, right? An expectation or an anchor, anything that meets or exceeds that expectation, you're going to label good, right? You're going to be very happy about. Anything that doesn't meet that expectation, you're going to label bad, and it's going to be challenging to your values, which is going to kickstart this process of pride and compensation. Now, this may not, you may just take one loss against your expectations. You may not have such a strong reaction to it, but after 3, 4, 5 losses and challenges towards your expectations, that's when this dynamic may kick in, and you start projecting narcissistically, and you go into that revenge, go into that spiral I was talking about in one of the previous videos. So one of the most efficient ways to address the revenge trading is to address the initial expectation. That initial expectation that you're holding on to, that anchor you've created in your mind, we need to get rid of that. And the way you get rid of that is transcending outcome-based thinking and going from outcome-based thinking to process-based thinking. Okay? I've covered it in the last few videos, especially when I said in that video, I believe it was day 3, where I said you need to do these 4 things before you get into every position. And I outlined the application of the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. So if you haven't already watched that, or you haven't started implementing the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, make sure you go into the description, and one of the links in the description will be the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. Start implementing that before every trade. And the main focus of that tool is to help you ground your expectations on the outcome. Now, just to give you an idea, nobody has any idea of what's going to happen next in the market on that individual outcome. So to hold any expectations of what you think is going to happen is completely unrealistic. All expectations on the outcome of an individual trade are unrealistic because there are so many factors moving price in that moment. To be aware of all those factors and to be able to compute those and to come up with a rational outcome of the markets is impossible. So any outcome-based expectations on the individual trade are unrealistic. You need to use that Bulletproof Your Mindset tool to become aware of those and to ground those. Okay? Now, the third solution, so make sure you have a mechanical trading plan, make sure you have the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, and then the third solution, you have to get very good. Now, the more and more you manage your expectations before you take a trade, the more objectively you're going to be able to see price run through your stop loss and your take profit without going into pride, without going into shame, without being puffed up, without being challenged in that moment. However, you also need to get very good at humbling yourself and grounding your proud state. Okay? And you need to have a set of questions and a process that allows you to get back to a state of equilibrium very quickly. This is important for trading as it's important for life. You'll probably find that you experience quite a bit of what is referred to as hubris, the pride before the fall, right? Where you puff yourself up, you talk very highly about yourself, and guess what? You attract someone challenging you. Or you beat yourself up a lot and you attract someone supporting you into your life, right? You can either beat yourself up and puff yourself up and attract external forces that try to bring you back to a state of equilibrium, or you can get very good at doing it yourself so you don't require governance from the external world or from the market. So what great traders do is when they puff themselves up into that state of pride initially because of a challenge or a win or whatever reason, going into that state of pride, they're aware of that and they have questions that allow them to bring themselves back to that state of equilibrium, to bring themselves back down, to humble themselves. And if they go into this state of shame, they have questions to be able to bring themselves back up to this state of equilibrium. Because whenever you're caught in pride or shame, you have fear and greed running your trading, and you're in outcome-based thinking. Whereas if you're in this state of equilibrium where you're more poised and balanced, you are in what is called process-based thinking. This is where you stick to your trading plan and you don't go out of control. Outcome-based thinking is where you go out of control. Okay? This is where you're emotional. This is where you have revenge. There's no revenge when you're process-based. So the way you overcome revenge trading is by having a clear mechanical trading plan that you're certain in, by managing your expectations before every trade, and then getting very good at bringing yourself back to that state of equilibrium when you know you're puffed up, a little bit head high, right? A little bit proud, a little bit self-exaggerating. You remind yourself of some of your flaws and some of your faults to bring yourself back down to earth. And when you're down in the dumps, you remind yourself of some of your achievements and accomplishments to bring yourself back to that state of equilibrium. If you learn to do that yourself and you have what is referred to as self-governance, you don't require the market to humble you out of governance by the market being caught in the boom and bust cycle, being caught in things like revenge trading and all that type of stuff. Okay? So don't get to the point where you start to spiral out into revenge trading. Become aware, self-aware, and implement the teachings and the tools that I pass on in these YouTube videos and my program, my 12-week program, my coaching, to bring yourself back to that state of equilibrium. So really you can get back to your trading plan and you can stick to your edge and you can stick to your mechanical system. Okay? If you found this useful, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share the YouTube Trading Psychology Series playlist with your trading communities. And if you haven't already, make sure you do the Trading Psychology Archetype quiz. That quiz is going to give you an insight into which trading psychology you have, as well as show you exactly what you have to do to get to consistent profitability. Okay, thank you for watching to the end, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.